The day my therapist told me to cut ties with my mama, I thought she had finally saved my life. I didn't know she was saving my mother's reputation. That line still sits in the back of my throat like a swallowed stone. Some truths don't cut you all at once. They bleed you slow. I didn't know that then, though. I was just a tired woman, sitting in a beige leather chair in a small office on the east side of Atlanta, trying to breathe through another session. Dr. Nash's office always smelled like lavender and ink. A strange mix that never made sense, but somehow made the room feel safe. Or maybe I just needed it to be safe. The afternoon sun would always fall across her bookshelves in long, silent stripes, and her voice, soft, steady, too gentle to ever be questioned, floated through the room like warm water. She leaned forward that day, elbows on her knees, her locks pulled back into a neat bun, glasses low on her nose. "Lena," she said, "your mother is harming you more than she's helping you. I think it's time you consider distance." I remember staring at her, blinking too fast. Distance? Like less calling or... She cut me off, still gentle. "No. I mean space. Real space. Emotional and physical. You need room to heal." Her words wrapped around me like a blanket I didn't ask for, but desperately wanted to hide under. I felt my jaw tremble. I felt the tears before the understanding. My mother, Patrice, wasn't a monster. But she wasn't soft either. Her love had edges. Sharp ones. The kind of woman who always meant well, but left you bleeding without noticing she'd ever cut you. Growing up with her was like growing up beside a fence made of thorns. You learn to move carefully, quietly, always calculating which part might hurt you next. But she was my mama, and Dr. Nash knew that. She knew everything because I had given her everything. My childhood stories, my teenage meltdowns, the years of walking on eggshells, the way my mother's voice could make my stomach twist even now at 34. She knew. She had the map to my whole emotional world. So when she said distance, I believed her. And that was the beginning of the unraveling. Even though at the time, it felt like the beginning of peace. Before all that mess came crashing down, my life was simple in that quiet, grown woman way. I lived alone in a small brick apartment on Auburn Avenue. Nothing fancy, but warm. I kept plants in every corner because I liked waking up to something alive. My job at the community youth center kept me busy most days, surrounded by teenagers who thought they were too grown and too cool to listen until life knocked them a little sideways. I had routines. Morning coffee from the shop downstairs, always medium roast with a splash of vanilla. Evening walks around the block, watching the neighborhood shift between old Atlanta and new Atlanta, folks grilling on porches beside shiny new townhomes that didn't quite belong. And Sundays. Sundays were for Mama. Even after everything we'd been through, I still drove over to her house every Sunday afternoon. She'd have something cooking, maybe collards simmering on the stove or cornbread cooling on the counter, and we'd dance around each other in that polite, practiced way we had learned over years of not knowing how to love each other softly. She wasn't cruel, just controlling, opinionated, always right, always ready to remind me of what I should have done, could have done, or wasn't doing enough of. When I first started seeing Dr. Nash, Mama didn't like it. "Therapy," she'd scoff. "Girl, what you need therapy for? You ain't crazy. You just spoiled." I never understood how a mother could say that with love, but somehow she did. Somehow I kept coming back. So yes, life was normal. Complicated, but normal. I wasn't miserable. I wasn't lost. I was just a woman trying to unlearn the parts of her childhood that kept echoing in her adulthood. And Dr. Nash. She was helping me do that. Or so I believed. Week after week, she would sit across from me, legs crossed, writing on that little notepad she never let me see. She'd ask thoughtful questions, tilt her head with that practiced understanding, guide me to insights I never reached on my own. She'd say things like, "How did that make you feel when she dismissed your accomplishments? Do you think you're still trying to earn her approval? Do you feel smaller when you're around her?" And I'd sit there, voice shaking, answering like a child who had waited her whole life for someone to finally listen. I grew attached to her warmth, to her certainty, to the idea that anybody finally understood me better than Mama ever had. Which is why, when she said my mother was toxic, something inside me finally exhaled. For the first time in years, I felt seen. I didn't know that the very woman giving me comfort was standing on a foundation of secrets. I didn't know the truth moving underneath us like a quiet earthquake. I didn't know my mother and my therapist had history. Old history. The kind of history that bends truth and shapes stories long before you ever hear them. But life has a way of opening curtains you didn't even know were there. And that curtain, it didn't open gently. Not at all. The first sign that something wasn't right came on a Wednesday evening, one of those Atlanta evenings where the heat hangs in the air like an unfinished sentence. I had just finished a long day at the youth center, breaking up arguments about who stole whose headphones and reminding 3 different boys that deodorant is not optional. I sat in my car for a minute before driving to therapy, letting the AC blast on my face. I needed that little bit of stillness before I stepped into Dr. Nash's office. She always said I came in too tense. When I got there, her receptionist gave me a strange look. Not angry, not friendly, just studying me like she wanted to say something but couldn't. "Dr. Nash will be with you shortly, Miss Turner," she said, but her voice had a tremor in it. Like she knew something I didn't. I brushed it off. I was tired, and tired people see things that aren't really there. But when I walked into the office, Dr. Nash didn't greet me the way she usually did. No warm smile. No, "How are you, Lena?" Just a curt nod and a small, almost forced smile. She seemed distracted, shuffling papers that didn't need shuffling, adjusting her glasses even though they'd been sitting just fine. "You okay?" I asked, settling into the leather chair I always chose, the one near the window. She hesitated. Just a beat too long. "Yes, I'm all right. Let's begin." But the way she said it didn't feel like her. Dr. Nash was always composed, but that day her voice had sharp edges. I started talking about my week, the little things, the small victories at work, the way I almost burned my chicken Alfredo because I got caught up cleaning the kitchen. Normal stuff. But as I talked, she kept interrupting me, cutting off my sentences, jumping to conclusions she hadn't jumped to before. "Do you see? Your mother's influence still controls you." I paused. "I was just talking about dinner." "And even there," she insisted, I hear her voice. "You're still being shaped by her expectations." I frowned. My mother didn't teach me how to cook chicken Alfredo. She didn't even like Alfredo sauce. Something felt off. Her tone, her impatience, the way she seemed almost irritated with me. It was subtle but noticeable, like a violin string slightly out of tune. Still, I didn't question her. She was the therapist. She was the expert. If she said Mama was the root, I believed her. But that night, as I drove home, I kept replaying that session. Not the words. The energy. It felt like she wasn't listening to me. She was defending something. Or someone. 2 weeks later, Mama called me out of nowhere. "Baby, you coming on Sunday?" she asked, voice light, almost teasing. "Yeah, Mama. I'll be there." She hummed. "Well, all right then. Bring me some of that peach cobbler you make, the one with the brown sugar crust." "Sure," I said, smiling at the memory of her devouring half the pan the last time. But then she slipped in a sentence so quick I almost missed it. "You still seeing that therapist? What's her name?" "Nash." My heart stopped for half a breath. I never told Mama her name. She'd always been against therapy, so I never gave her any details. Not the office location, not the schedule, and definitely not the therapist's name. "How did you know her name?" I asked slowly. Mama paused, then laughed. Too casually. "Oh, I don't know, baby. Maybe you mentioned it." I hadn't. Not once. "Mama," my voice lowered. "You sure I told you that?" She hesitated. Just long enough to confirm she was lying. "Well," she said finally, "maybe I heard it somewhere. Folks talk, you know." No. No, they didn't. Nobody in Mama's friend circle knew I was in therapy. And if they did, they wouldn't know my therapist's last name. When we hung up, my hands were shaking. Something wasn't adding up. It wasn't a loud alarm. It was a soft, persistent whisper. A trail of wrongness. The moment everything shifted, the moment suspicion rooted itself deep, came on a rainy Monday evening. I walked into Dr. Nash's office soaked from the sudden downpour, shaking the water off my umbrella. She looked up from her desk, startled, and quickly flipped a paper face down. Usually she would have smiled, maybe made a joke about the weather. Not that day. "You're early," she said, even though I wasn't. I sat down, brushing raindrops off my sleeve. "Rough day. I just wanted to get the session started." She hummed and adjusted her glasses, visibly tense. That's when I saw it. Her notepad, peeking out from under the flipped-over paper. My mother's name, written in big, clear letters. Patrice Turner, call notes. I froze. Call notes? Call? Why would she have call notes with my mother? Before I could think, she slid the notepad completely under a folder, like she didn't want me to see it. "Let's begin," she said quickly. My throat tightened. "Did you talk to my mother?" I asked, trying to sound calm. Her eyes flickered, a tiny, almost invisible crack in her composure. "No." "Why do you ask?" I swallowed hard. That notepad. I saw her name. She forced a small smile. "Oh, that?" "No, that's unrelated. Another client's situation. Common name. Nobody in this city had my mother's name. Not that spelling. Not that middle initial. Not that handwriting." I nodded slowly, pretending to accept it. But inside me, a storm started brewing. She changed the subject quickly, too quickly, diving into questions about my boundaries, my anxiety, my childhood wounds. But I couldn't focus. My stomach twisted. My skin tingled. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Because suddenly, things made sense in ways I never wanted them to. The advice to distance myself. The sudden push to cut ties permanently. The way she talked like she knew Mama personally, not through my stories, but through her own lens. And the subtle shift in her tone weeks earlier. It felt like guilt. But I needed more than suspicion. I needed truth. And truth is never quiet for long. The truth didn't hit me in one clean blow. It came in pieces, scattered, sharp, cutting me from the inside as I tried to put them together. After that strange session, I left Dr. Nash's office with my heart thumping like I'd been running. I didn't go straight home that night. I drove around downtown Atlanta with the windows cracked, letting the damp air cool my skin, hoping it would calm the storm in my chest. But peace is stubborn when your spirit is unsettled. I kept replaying the moment I saw Mama's name on that notepad. Not a Patrice. Not some Patrice. My mother. And Dr. Nash lied. Boldly. Smoothly. As if lying was muscle memory. By the time I got home, I knew one thing for sure. If there was truth to find, it wasn't going to sit quietly. Not anymore. The next Sunday, the day I usually went to Mama's, I almost didn't go. My heart wasn't ready for her voice, her questions, the weight of her presence. But something inside me needed to see her. Needed to look her in the eyes and figure out what part she played in this growing mess. When I walked up her driveway, her porch light was on even though it was noon. She always turned it on early, like she was expecting judgment to come walking up the steps. She opened the door before I knocked. "Hey, baby," she said, smiling too wide. Too rehearsed. I forced a smile back. "Hey, Mama." Inside, the house smelled like baked chicken and lemon cleaner, her usual combination. The TV was low, Tyler Perry rerun murmuring in the background. Everything looked normal, comfortable, lived in. But Mama herself, she kept watching me out of the corner of her eye, as if she was afraid the truth might start leaking out of her pores. During dinner, I pushed my food around my plate, barely tasting anything. Mama finally sighed. "All right. What's wrong? You've been quiet since you got here." I glanced up at her. She looked worried, but also defensive. Like she was ready to argue before she knew the topic. "Mama," I said slowly. "How do you know my therapist's name?" Her fork paused midair. She lowered it carefully. Too carefully. "I told you. Maybe you mentioned it." I didn't. She inhaled sharply through her nose, That same tense breath she used when she was caught but refused to admit it. Lena, I don't have time for all that. Folks talk. I hear things. I leaned forward.
Mama.
Look at me.
She did.
Her eyes flickered, guilt, fear, something older than both. Have you talked to her? Dr. Nash. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, and finally whispered, it wasn't supposed to go this far. My heart dropped straight into my stomach. What wasn't supposed to go this far? She rubbed her forehead like the truth was giving her a migraine. I just asked her to look out for you. That's all. I didn't tell her what to say or do. You talked to my therapist? She winced at the anger in my voice. I talked to her once, she said quickly. Just once. Months back. My breathing went uneven. Mama, how did you even get her number? Silence. Her lips pressed tight. She didn't need to answer. I already knew. She went through my things. Again. You looked through my stuff, I whispered, the hurt expanding behind my ribs. I was worried, she snapped, her voice cracking. You were seeing somebody every week, spending all that money, digging up old wounds. I needed to know what was going on. You violated my privacy. I'm your mother. Her voice echoed through the room. I stared at her, really stared at her, and in that moment, something in me shifted. Love doesn't excuse intrusion. Concern doesn't justify control. I felt myself pull back emotionally in a way I never had before. So you contacted her, I said, my voice trembling. What did you say to her? Mama swallowed. She asked questions about your childhood. I answered. My throat tightened. And then, she hesitated. Then she offered to help you reframe some things. Said she'd guide you the right way. The right way. As if my version of my own life needed correcting. And, did you two talk again? Mama's eyes darted away. That was the truth. Right there. Blinking in guilt. How many times, Mama? She whispered it. 4. 4. My voice cracked. I didn't tell her what to say, she shouted. I just wanted you to see things differently. You always make me out to be some villain, Lena. Maybe she could help you understand me. Understand her.
Not me.
Not my pain. Not my healing. Her. My chest heaved with betrayal. You had my therapist working for you, I said quietly, tears burning my eyes. I didn't ask her to. She told me to cut you off, Mama. That stopped her cold. Her face drained of color. What? She told me to distance myself permanently. She said you were toxic. Harmful. Mama's hand flew to her chest. She said that. Yes. She looked genuinely shocked. And terrified. I never told her to say that, she whispered. I just asked her to help you see that I wasn't the enemy. But intentions don't erase consequences. What else did you tell her? I demanded. She shook her head vigorously. Nothing that wasn't true. What else? Her voice cracked. I told her you exaggerate things. That you're sensitive. Emotional. You take things the wrong way. My stomach twisted violently. You painted me as unstable. I thought she'd help you toughen up. I pushed my chair back so hard it scraped the floor. You manipulated my therapy. You poisoned my healing. Mama started crying, small, broken sobs she rarely let anyone hear. It was one call, baby, she whispered. One call that turned into something else. I didn't mean for her to take it that far. But damage doesn't care about intention. It just settles itself deep inside you and grows roots. I stood up. I need to go. She grabbed my wrist, not hard, but desperate. Please don't walk away from me. I gently pulled free. I'm not walking away, Mama. I'm stepping back. And now I have to find out how much of my therapy was actually mine, and how much of it was yours. Her face crumpled. But nothing she said could pull me back. Because the real confrontation wasn't with her. It was with the woman who had sat across from me for months,
Pretending to guide me.
pretending to heal me, while holding hands with the very person I was trying to understand. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, watching shadows crawl across the plaster as cars passed outside. My mind kept circling the same questions like a broken record. How many of her words were really mine? How many sessions were guided by Mama's voice sitting in the room with us, invisible but present? Was any of my healing actually healing, or was it just manipulation wrapped in therapeutic language? By 3 a.m., my chest hurt from holding everything in. By 4 a.m., I knew I couldn't wait until my next appointment. By 7 a.m., I had a plan. Not revenge. Not a dramatic showdown like something off a TV show. Just clarity.
Truth.
I needed it like oxygen. I waited until mid-morning, when I knew the receptionist would be in. My hands shook as I dialed the number, the way they used to when I was a little girl calling Mama from a friend's house, scared she'd be angry I stayed too late. Good morning, Dr. Nash's office. It was the same receptionist from before, that woman with the eyes that looked like they carried secrets. Hi, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. This is Lena Turner. I'd like a copy of my therapy records. Silence. Then a small inhale, like she wasn't expecting that. Your records, she repeated carefully. Do you want the session summaries as well?
Yes.
Everything. Another pause. Of course. I'll have the doctor look them over before. No, I said, sharper than intended. I want them printed exactly as they are. No edits. That pause grew deeper. Heavier. Understood, she said finally. I almost hung up, but something pushed me further. And one more thing, I added. Can you tell me, do you have any notations or logs about communication with outside parties? She hesitated, so long I thought the call dropped. Then, quietly, you'll see everything in the file. My heart pounded. I thanked her and hung up. There it was, a crack. A fissure. The truth was coming. I drove to the office that afternoon. Not to confront anyone. Not yet. Just to pick up the folder. When the receptionist handed it to me, she didn't meet my eyes. Her lips were pressed, so tight they looked bloodless. She slid the folder across the counter like it was something too hot to hold. I thanked her, but she just nodded. On my way out, I saw Dr. Nash's office door slightly open. She was inside, sitting at her desk, writing. When she looked up and saw me, she smiled. But something in her smile was wrong. Too bright. Too polite. Too ready. Lena, she said warmly. You're early for your session. Everything all right? I held up the folder. Just picking up my records. Her smile faltered. For a split second. Barely noticeable. But I noticed. Oh, she said. Any particular reason? No reason. I lied, forcing calm. Just wanted a copy. She nodded slowly, measuring me with her eyes. Well, if you have any questions about what's inside, we can discuss them during your session. Not if.
When. She assumed I'd show up.
Like I was predictable. Manageable. I smiled back, the way she had taught me. Soft, non-confrontational, almost apologetic. Sure, I said. We'll talk. But inside, my spirit slammed a door shut. I didn't open the folder in my car. I didn't open it at a cafe. I didn't open it sitting on my couch with a TV humming in the background. I opened it at my dining table, the same spot Mama had once told me to stop being dramatic about childhood things. The folder was thicker than I expected. Heavier. My chest tightened as the first page hit me like a punch. Phone call, P. Turner, mother. Date, 3 months after I started therapy. Duration, 47 minutes. I felt the air leave my lungs. 47 minutes. Mama had talked to her for almost an hour? My eyes moved to the notes beneath. Client's mother states that Lena tends to misremember events. Mother reports a pattern of emotionality and exaggeration. Mother requests assistance in helping client see things more clearly. See things more clearly.
God.
I flipped the page. Another call. And another. And another. Mama hadn't talked to her 4 times. She'd talked to her 7. 7 calls. 7 conversations behind my back. 7 opportunities for my story, my pain, to be dissected without my knowledge. I reached the session summaries. That's when the real violation unfolded. Session 12. Client still resistant to reframing events involving mother. Continue encouraging distance until client depersonalizes emotional narrative. Depersonalizes. My emotions were a narrative she wanted to separate me from. Session 18. Client becomes defensive when mother is challenged. Session 19. Continue pushing for reduction of contact. Session 20. Maintaining therapeutic alliance with mother is important to contextualizing client behavior. Therapeutic alliance with mother.
Not me.
Her. I felt sick. My hands shook as I flipped page after page until I reached the very last note. Mother expresses concern that client will withdraw if she feels pressured. Reassured mother that progress is being made. Reassured mother.
Not me.
Not the client. I closed the folder slowly, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something stronger than hurt, that I felt clarity.
Cold. Clean.
Calming. Like stepping into a truth I had avoided all my life. Mama wasn't the only one who had betrayed me. Dr. Nash had used her degree like a mask. A disguise. A tool to control me under the guise of healing. This wasn't therapy. This was manipulation with a diploma. I sat there for almost an hour, breathing deeply, letting the shock settle into something steady. And then a strange peace washed over me. Because now I knew. Now the fog had lifted. Now I saw the whole web, who spun it, who got tangled in it, and who benefited from it. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to throw accusations. I was going to walk into that office with every ounce of dignity I had, and I was going to take my power back. Not just from Dr. Nash. Not just from Mama.
But from the part of myself that had been taught to shrink.
The next session would be different. It would be the last. And I would not be sitting in that chair as a client. I would be sitting there as a woman reclaiming her life. I didn't sleep that night. My body laid down, but my spirit stayed awake, pacing. I kept hearing that metallic clack of the latch locking behind me when I walked into the house earlier. Kept hearing that single syllable. Oh. The woman's voice.
Light. Soft. Wrong.
And every time I replayed it, the scene rearranged itself. 1 minute, I saw her hands on his chest. The next, I saw him stepping back too slow. Then I saw myself, frozen in the doorway like I was the stranger in my own home. I kept asking myself, what did I actually see, and what did I want to believe I saw? Those two questions are cousins, but they ain't twins. One is truth. The other is hope dressed up in excuses. By 6 a.m., my head hurt, my eyes felt like crushed glass, and my heart, Lord, the thing was tired. You ever cry without your eyes watering? Cry so deep it doesn't even reach your face? That's where I was. And I knew today couldn't go on like normal. I needed to talk to somebody.
But not just anybody.
So after I showered, wrapped my hair, pinned my gold studs in, and threw on my gray sweats and black hoodie, I grabbed my keys and headed straight to the only person in the world who could look at me and know what I wasn't saying. My mother. Mama was already at the stove, robe tied sloppy, slippers dragging, humming some old Mahalia Jackson song I ain't heard since childhood. The smell of fried apples and butter was thick in the air. Sweet, warm, heavy, like a blanket. She didn't turn when I opened the door. She didn't ask why I was there. She didn't even greet me like she usually did. She just said, "Baby, who hurt you?"
And that was it.
That one sentence slid through me like a knife through ripe mango, clean, soft, and unexpected. My throat closed up. My chest tightened. I sat down at the tiny round kitchen table like a child being called back to the truth. Ma, that was all I could push out. She turned the stove off, wiped her hands on the towel hanging from the oven handle, and came to sit across from me. Her eyes scanned my face like she was reading a report card only she understood.
Talk to me, she said. So I did. Slow. Broken. Piece by piece.
I told her about the hallway.
The door.
The woman. The way he stepped back. The way he looked at me, guilty, but trying not to be. When I finished, she didn't interrupt. Didn't gasp. Didn't tell me to breathe or calm down or stop crying. She just sat there, chin in palm, elbow on the table, listening like she was trying to hear the parts one hadn't spoken yet. Then she said, "You know what I'm proud of? You saw what you saw. You didn't talk yourself out of it." That hit me deep, because she was right. My first instinct was to explain it away. Tell myself I misunderstood. Tell myself it wasn't what it looked like. Tell myself I was being dramatic. Tell myself he wouldn't do that. But the truth was sitting right there in my chest like a stone. Mama reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "You can love a man," she said, "but you cannot love lies. Lies don't stay small. Lies grow legs. And once they start running through your house, they knock everything over." I swallowed hard. "What do I do?" I whispered. Mama leaned back and sighed, rubbing her temple the way she does when she's thinking 5 layers deep. "First," she said, "you don't react from fear. You react from clarity. Let me ask you, is this the first time you felt something was off?" My silence answered her. She nodded slowly.
Uh-huh.
"That's what I thought." Mama got up, poured me some hot tea, and set it in front of me. "I'm not here to tell you leave him," she said. "But I will tell you this. God gives women warnings. We feel what ain't right long before we see what ain't right. What you saw last night, that was confirmation, not surprise." My stomach twisted, because everything she said was true. The distance, the phone turning over, the late nights, the sudden privacy, the jokes that didn't land the same, the way he held me like he was thinking of something else, the way he kissed me like he was trying to remember how. I felt all of it before I saw anything. "But Mama," I whispered, voice cracking, "I loved him. I still do." She looked at me and smiled that sad motherly smile, the one that says I've been there too, baby. "You can love someone honestly," she said, "and still realize they weren't loving you the same way." I nodded slowly, staring into my tea. Then Mama said something that changed the whole direction of my heart. "The question ain't, does he love you? The real question is, does he love you in a way that keeps you whole?" My breath caught, because I already knew the answer. When I left Mama's house, my spirit felt heavier but clearer. Like the fog wasn't gone, but it wasn't choking me anymore. I got in my car, sat behind the wheel, and stared straight ahead. And for the first time since last night, I didn't feel like begging for an explanation. I wanted the truth, not reassurance. Not excuses. Not performance. The truth. I drove home slowly, rehearsing nothing. Just breathing. Preparing myself. Not for a fight, but for honesty. Because something in me recognized I wasn't going back to the woman who walked into that house last night. She was gone. Something broke open inside me, and there was no gluing it back the same way. Today, I was going to face him, but this time from a place of clarity, not confusion. And that's when the shift became real. Because facing the truth is one thing, but facing the person who broke it, that's something else entirely. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the sun was high enough to make everything look normal, too normal. The kind of day where people water their lawns, kids ride bikes, dogs bark fences down. But inside me, everything felt loose, fragile, rearranged. I sat in the car for a long minute before getting out. I needed that pause, that breath, that reminder to myself. You're not walking into battle. You are walking into truth. When I pushed the front door open, the house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet where even the walls feel like they're listening. His keys were on the console table. His jacket was on the hook. His shoes by the mat. So he was homed. My heartbeat changed pace. Slow. Heavy thumps. The kind that don't match the situation but match the weight of it. I walked deeper into the house, each step sounding louder than usual. The floor creaked like it was nervous too. Then I saw him. He was sitting on the couch, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together like a man waiting for judgment. His head hung low, but his ears perked when he heard my footsteps. He didn't look up. Not immediately. He inhaled first, long, shaky. Then he lifted his head. And that's when it hit me. Guilt has its own face, its own posture, its own way of breathing. His eyes were red-rimmed like he hadn't slept either, but the look in them wasn't grief. It was fear. Not fear of losing me, but fear of the confrontation. "Hey," he said softly. I nodded once. "We need to talk." He swallowed hard and nodded too. "I know." I sat on the single chair across from him, creating space, not dramatic, but intentional. My heart was beating, but my spirit was still. Mama was right. Clarity had settled in me like calm waters. He looked at me, waiting for me to explode, waiting for screaming, waiting for tears, waiting for drama. But I gave him none of that. Because sometimes silence is louder than yelling. "I can explain." I held up my hand, not aggressively, just firmly. "I don't want the story," I said. "I want the truth." He blinked like that surprised him. And that alone told me everything. People who are innocent rush to tell their truth. People who are guilty rush to craft one. He leaned back, rubbed the back of his neck, and exhaled. "It wasn't what it looked like," he said. I smiled. Not a happy smile. A knowing one. "Then what was it?" I asked softly. He shifted. His foot tapped. His eyes darted. He suddenly found the ceiling interesting, then the carpet, then his hands. Guilty men always get fascinated by things they never cared about before. Finally, he said, She's someone from work. She was upset. I was comforting her. That's all." I stared at him, not blinking, not reacting, not feeding the performance, just looking. The silence stretched long enough to break him a little. "I mean," he corrected quickly, "I shouldn't have been that close. But it wasn't what you think." I tilted my head. "You didn't look surprised when I walked in," I said. "If it was innocent, why did you step back like you were caught?" His lips parted, but no words came out. I continued, still calm. "And if she was upset, why did she say, oh, like, she wasn't expecting me to be there?" He shifted again. "Look," he said, voice suddenly defensive, "you're making this bigger than it is." There it was. The phrase every guilty person keeps in their back pocket. I let out a slow breath. "I'm not making it big," I said. "The truth already is." He rubbed his forehead with both hands. "I don't want to lose you," he whispered. The words sounded right, but the tone was off, like he was saying it because he should, not because he felt it. I leaned forward. "You're not answering the question," I said gently. "Were you being faithful to me?" His eyes closed. His jaw tightened. His chest moved in a slow rise and fall. Then he said the most truth-filled lie I'd ever heard. I didn't mean for things to go that far. My stomach dropped, but my face didn't. Because that sentence told me everything without telling me anything. He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. He said the one thing people say when the truth is ugly and the guilt is heavy. I nodded slowly. "I appreciate your honesty," I said. He snapped his head up, confused. "You're not mad?" he asked. I smiled again. Sad, tired, but clear. "I'm heartbroken," I said. "But I'm not surprised." That broke something in him. He leaned back, eyes glistening, suddenly looking much smaller than the man I loved. "You felt it too?" he whispered. "Yes," I said. My spirit felt the distance long before my eyes saw it.
He didn't respond.
He just lowered his head. I looked at him sitting there. This man I built a life with, this man I prayed for, this man I trusted, this man who used to look at me like I was his home. And suddenly I realized something. I wasn't begging for him to choose me. Not anymore. I wasn't hoping for him to explain it away. Not anymore. The love was still there, but the innocence of that love was gone. Like a glass you drop on tile. Even if you glue it back, you will always see where the cracks used to be. He looked up at me, voice trembling. What do you want me to do?" I shook my head gently. "This isn't about what you do," I said. "This is about what I need to do for myself." He swallowed. "Are you leaving me?" I let the silence answer. Because I didn't know yet. Not fully. Not emotionally. Not realistically. But I did know. Something had ended. Even if the relationship wasn't over, the version of myself that tolerated confusion was gone. I stood up slowly. "I need time," I said. "And I need space." And I need the truth without me having to chase it. He nodded, wiping his face. I walked to the bedroom. Not to pack, not to leave, but to breathe. Because the moment I stepped away from him, something inside me settled. Not peace, but clarity. And clarity is the beginning of power. I didn't leave the house that day, but something in me left him. Not angrily, not dramatically, just quietly, like a light turning off in a room you didn't realize you were still sitting in. I stayed in the bedroom for a long while, sitting on the edge of the bed with my palms pressed together, letting the truth wash over me like cold water. The house had a strange feeling, like the air was listening, like every wall held a piece of the conversation that just happened. Some moments in life feel like a page turn. Others feel like a whole chapter ends. That day felt like both. After a while, I heard footsteps outside the door. Soft ones. Careful ones. He knocked. "Do you want me to leave the house?" he asked, voice trembling. I stared at the door for a few seconds before answering. "No," I said. "I'm not afraid of you. And I'm not running." There was a long pause. "Okay," he whispered. His footsteps retreated, and I heard him move around the kitchen like he didn't know where anything belonged anymore. I wiped my face with both hands, took a slow breath, and whispered to myself, "You don't heal by pretending this didn't happen." Around 4 p.m., my phone vibrated on the nightstand. A number I didn't recognize. Normally, I ignore those, but something told me to answer. "Hello." A soft, hesitant voice came through the line. "Hi, is this?" She said my full name. My chest tightened, because it was the voice from the office hallway. The woman who snapped back when she saw me there. The one with him. I sat up straighter, suddenly aware of every sound, every breath. "Who is this?" I asked calmly. She exhaled shakily. "My name is Tiana. I work with your husband." Silence filled the space between us like thick fog. She continued, I don't know what he told you, but I needed to tell you my part." I closed my eyes. Truth has a sound. It's shaky, frightened, urgent. I didn't interrupt her. "I didn't plan for anything to happen," she said. He was just easy to talk to. And I was going through a divorce. And he was always helping with things at work, and it just got too close. My blood ran cold. She kept talking. "We only kissed twice. And when you walked in, we were talking, but it wasn't." She stopped, like the guilt suddenly hit her. "I'm not defending it. I'm not. I needed you to know he didn't lie about everything." My fingers tightened around the phone. "Why are you calling me?" I asked quietly. Her voice broke. "Because I saw your face," she whispered. "And I've had people hurt me before too. And I couldn't live with myself if I let you think something worse than what actually happened." Worse. People love to act like certain betrayals are not as bad as others. But once your heart is cracked, it doesn't matter what caused the first fracture. I closed my eyes again. "Thank you for calling," I said. She sniffed, voice trembling. "I'm sorry. Truly." "I know," I said. "And I meant it." She hung up. I let the phone fall beside me. For the first time all day, I didn't cry. Because the truth, when it finally settles, does something strange. It stops hurting and starts shaping you. When I walked back into the living room, he stood up immediately like a kid caught doing something wrong. His eyes searched mine. "I heard you on the phone," he said. I nodded. "I figured you did." He swallowed. "Did she tell you everything?" I sat on the opposite couch. Not coldly, just clearly. "Enough," I said. His shoulders slumped. Then, softly, I added, "You should have told me yourself." That broke him more than anything. "I was wrong," he whispered. "And I'll spend every day trying to prove to you I can fix this." I held up one hand gently. "Stop." He froze. "Don't promise me healing," I said. "Promise me honesty. That's the only thing that matters now." He nodded slowly. "I can do that." I took a steady breath. "I'm not making any decisions today," I said. "I'm not leaving tomorrow. But I am stepping back. I need the truth to settle. I need to rebuild myself before I decide whether I'm rebuilding us." He blinked and nodded again, tears slipping down his face. And then I said something that surprised even me. I don't hate you. His eyes widened. I'm disappointed. I'm hurt. I'm angry in ways I can't even name yet. But I don't hate you. Because hate keeps you tied to the person who hurt you. And I need distance, emotionally, to breathe. He sat down slowly, covering his face. I'll give you whatever space you need. I nodded. That was the first sane thing he said all day. That night, we slept in separate rooms. Not out of spite. Not out of punishment. Just necessity. Healing needs space. Clarity needs silence. And when you're rebuilding your soul, sometimes the person who broke it can't sit beside you. I lay in the guest room with the door halfway open. Not locked, not closed, just enough to remind myself. I'm not trapped. I'm choosing my peace. I stared at the ceiling for a long time, listening to the quiet house. And then something happened I didn't expect. A warmth settled in my chest. Not forgiveness. Not acceptance. Not relief. Just strength. Simple, steady, quiet strength. Because the one thing my husband broke was the one thing I rebuilt in the same night. My self-worth. I turned off the lamp, pulled the blanket up to my chin, and let my breath slow. I didn't know what tomorrow would look like. Or next week. Or next month. But I did know this. I would never again need someone to tell me when the truth was standing in front of me. I had learned how to hear my own heart, and it spoke louder than any betrayal. The next few days moved slow, like honey sliding down the side of a jar. Thick, heavy, deliberate. Nothing dramatic happened. No screaming. No accusations. No storm. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that forces you to hear yourself clearly for the first time in years. We moved around the house like people learning new steps, careful, gentle, giving each other space. He woke up early every morning, cooking breakfast he wasn't sure I'd eat. And I stayed up late every night, sitting at the dining table with a notebook, journaling thoughts I wasn't ready to say out loud. Healing looks different when trust is broken. Sometimes it's loud. But for me, it was quiet. Eerily quiet. On the fourth morning, I woke up with my heart finally steady. Not happy. Not fixed. Just steady. I made myself a cup of tea and sat on the back porch, letting the sun warm my face. The birds were loud. The air smelled like fresh dew, and for the first time in days, I felt like the world wasn't tilted beneath my feet. He stepped outside softly, as if asking the porch for permission to hold him. He had his mug too. Black coffee, his emotional crutch. He sat on the far end of the bench, giving me space without saying a word. It was the most respectful gesture he'd made since the truth came out. We sat in silence for a minute before he finally spoke. I booked us a therapy appointment, he said, voice low. A couples therapist. One we can both trust. I turned my head slightly. Both of us? I asked. He nodded quickly. Yes. I don't want another situation where you feel like someone is influencing anything. I want a place where you feel safe to talk. Where we can work through this in a healthy way. It was a good gesture. A thoughtful one. But therapy wasn't the question. I was. Why do you want to fix this? I asked softly. He blinked. Because I love you, he said immediately. But for the first time in our marriage, I didn't take that answer at face value. What part of me do you love? I asked. The version of me that keeps the peace? Or the version of me that sees the truth? He swallowed hard, eyes glistening. I love you, he whispered. Flawed, hurting, questioning all of it. I stared at my tea. For so long the steam faded. Then I said something I had never said to him before. Loving me doesn't excuse hurting me. He closed his eyes, and I saw the truth hit him like a slow, deep punch. I know, he whispered. Later that afternoon, I left the house to get some air. Not running away. Just breathing somewhere bigger than the inside of my thoughts. I drove around aimlessly, past parks and grocery stores and people walking dogs, life still moving even when mine had paused. Eventually, I parked outside a small cafe and went inside. It smelled like cinnamon and warm bread, comfort in scent form. I sat by the window with a muffin, staring out at the street like I was watching a movie of someone else's life. And then, the truth settled into me like a slow drop of ink spreading through water. Staying or leaving wasn't the real decision.
Choosing myself was.
I didn't have to punish him. I didn't have to pretend it didn't hurt. I didn't have to rush forgiveness. I didn't have to rush healing either. I just had to choose me. I pulled my notebook from my purse and wrote one sentence. I will not abandon myself to keep someone else comfortable. And writing that sentence felt like a door opening inside me. When I returned home, he was in the kitchen washing dishes. He froze when he heard the door, wiping his hands quickly like he needed to prepare for something. I walked in with a calmness that surprised even me. "Can we talk?" I asked. He nodded instantly, his shoulders rising and falling as he prepared himself. We sat at the dining table, the place where we first laughed together, where we made big life decisions, where we prayed over meals. "I don't want to rush anything," I said. "I'm not making any final decisions yet. But I do know one thing." He leaned forward slightly. "I'm choosing myself now. That means every decision I make will be based on what brings me peace. Not pressure. Not fear. Not pity. Peace." His eyes softened, a tear sliding quietly. "I respect that," he whispered. I continued, steady and clear. "If we go to therapy, it won't be to fix the marriage. Not yet. It'll be to fix the communication. To fix the trust. To fix the foundation." He nodded again. "And if the marriage recovers after that," I added, "then good. But if it doesn't, I need you to understand. I will not lose myself trying to keep it alive." He covered his mouth with both hands, breathing hard through his nose, trying not to break. "I just want a chance," he whispered. "A real one." "You have one," I said. "But understand this. I'm healing for me, not for us." He lowered his hands and nodded slowly, accepting the truth even if it hurt. That night, for the first time since everything happened, I slept in our bedroom again. Not because things were fixed. Not because I was forgiving him. Not because I was moving on. But because I chose myself, and sleeping in my own bed was part of that. He slept on the couch without being told. I saw a pillow and blanket neatly arranged, and it made something warm move through me. Not love. Not reconciliation. Just understanding. The next morning, he didn't hover around me. He didn't try to fix everything in one day. He didn't smother me with apologies. He simply placed a mug of tea on the counter near me, whispered "Good morning," and walked away. It was the first morning that felt peaceful. Not perfect. Not healed. But peaceful. And sometimes, that's what healing looks like. Not a grand moment, but a quiet step toward yourself. Before you go, baby, listen. If this story touched your heart even a little, if it made you think, made you breathe deeper, or reminded you of your own strength, then don't just walk away quietly. Come on over and join our little family at Voice of Mrs. Addison. That's where we talk real life, real love, real pain, and real healing. On that channel, we don't pretend. We don't rush. We don't judge. We sit together, like sisters and brothers around a warm kitchen table, and we tell the truth, the kind that sets your heart free. So click that subscribe button, tap like, and share the story with someone who needs to hear it tonight. This is Voice of Mrs. Addison, where stories become healing, and healing becomes power. Come on home. I'll be waiting for you.